Hello and welcome. Today we will talk about the initial access when it comes to the OSCP and all of the different things that you should keep in mind so that you're as prepared as you need to be when it comes to the OSCP. So there are some key things that I want you to keep in mind. First of all, when it comes to initial access, scan all of the ports and not just the default 1000 that the Nmap will do, right? Because you want to see all of the TCP ports. And not only for TCP, I also suggest to scan UDP as well, especially once you get stuck. And I also highly recommend that you rescan the target. And again, especially when you get stuck, because environments can be unstable. And sadly, I have heard horror stories of people failing the exam because there was a port that actually was there. It just didn't show when the person scanned. Because in that moment, the environment was being unstable and that person had to spend $250 for the exam retake. So make sure you rescan the target several times. Next up, fingerprinting. It's very, very crucial. So when it comes to scanning all of the ports, obviously, you need to get all of the information, so that's a great start. I also obviously highly recommend you do brute forcing for files and directories, right? Whether you use GoBuster or FF or WFUS or DoorSearch or whatever, that is completely up to you. But make sure that you have the methodology and that you don't forget it, and make sure that you actually scan with different word lists so you can get as much information as possible. And then I also highly recommend that you do stuff like, if there's a random TCP port you haven't seen before, use netcap on it with verbose mode and see if it spits out any useful information back. Maybe it was actually a web server on a really random port, but it didn't feel like a web server because of the port that then it actually is. Or maybe it spits out more information about the server it is or version that it is, so you can now use public exploits against it. I also recommend checking for server headers, because that can also lead to specific response. I also recommend, if it's a website, to check which possible content management system it is, like WordPress, etc. And then I also recommend using tools like Webalizer, for instance. It's very, very useful. Sometimes that can give you good information. And just fingerprinting as much as humanly possible. You can also check source code. Also make sure you check the titles. Just basically constantly look for, is this something that's custom built? Is this something that I can find online? Is this a vulnerable version? Is it not? And which public exploits can I find for the specific version in this particular framework or whatever, right? So that's very, very important. So just constantly be fingerprinting as much as possible and take good notes. This is mostly it when it comes to fingerprinting. There's obviously going to be more details here and there. Also, you can use tools like Mecto and Nmap scripting engine. And also, I suggest you use service version enumeration and default scripts, SVSD on Nmap. And again, check all of the ports. And then other than that, it's really about knowing which vulnerabilities can lead to RCE and which one won't, and then really focusing on those. Local file inclusion, LFI, is very important because that can lead to shell with either noise poisoning or you being able to read a private SSH key. The same thing with XXE. If you have file read vulnerability there, that could also lead to you reading a SSH private key. As I said, LFI, you do noise poisoning. So definitely make sure you learn how to do that, learn how to do command injection, learn how to find and change public exploits to be able to get shelled that way. That's also very important. If you're not comfortable reading public exploits or you're not comfortable with Python, to just be able to read and modify basics without them, I highly recommend that you get comfortable with that. So find rooms, either through NetSite focus or Lane Kusanagi, or look at TryHackMe for specifically rooms that has public exploits. I would highly recommend that. And then also learn attacks like SQL injection. This is also very important because this could allow you to adopt database credentials, and those credentials could be reused somewhere. You could also sometimes get a direct shell using SQL injection. That's also possible. That's mostly it when it comes to specific vulnerabilities. Other than that, it's really about doing a lot of volume. Take a look at our free OSCP course, or you can get the full one SSM, which is massive. Make sure you develop your own notes. You can also get mine if you want, but it's whatever you prefer really. But having good notes is very, very, very important. Having an actual methodology is very important. And yeah, other than that, make sure you do a lot of volume in initial access, and I constantly reevaluate where your weak points are. So if you know that you cannot do SQL injection, and again, you have to do this manually, by the way, because of SQL Map is a banned tool on the exam. That's really my advice for you. If you follow all of this advice and you actually put in the volume training, then I definitely think that this is part of the OCP can be covered initial access. And it's obviously something that you know will come and that you need to get good at. Really hope that helps. If you really struggle or do you need more personal advice, you can ask me and Didier. It is good. But you have that access to the course, which you can join in the wall. I'll link it in down below. If literally $20, it's very, very cheap. I would probably increase it in the future, but yeah, $20, you can try it for free for an entire day. And if you don't like it, that's all good. But if you do like it, then awesome. Then you can keep learning and keep asking me questions. And people so far have been really, really liking it. And yeah, that's pretty much the plug for this video. I really hope this video was useful and that you found something in this that was helpful to you. And I wish you the best of luck with your OSCP journey. And I really hope you crush it as well. And yes, I'm rooting for you. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome. Today we are doing another machine. It's called the Gallery. It's just an easy machine, so hopefully this one will be quick, but let's see if we can learn something useful regardless. So we will always continue with the methodology, because that's the whole point of a methodology, right? It's just to have something repeatable that you can do time and time again. There we go. And let us scan this box right here. And if it's not yet up, then I will give it a bit more time. So I'll be back once this output is done. And there we go. Finally, the box is responding. So now we can do the full scan. So we see that we have some different ports. I'll let this one continue. We also have the port 8080. Simple image gallery. Full calendar, but that's a widget. Okay. So I will see if something like this exists. Okay, so it's just these ports, it seems like, but we will always we also have a path right here. Yeah, so we don't know which version this is, but we can take a look at these exploits regardless, because maybe they will mention some path that seems to match this one right here. There's a login with any verified credentials. So there seems to be a SQL injection there, but we don't have valid credentials. This is also authenticated. Let's see. So what I would like is to see if there's any more exploits that mentions the unauthenticated part of it, or if there is. Yeah, this is the authenticated one. Via the username parameter. Okay, this one is very interesting. Okay, so we reference this one right here. Sorry, I read wrong. This one is unauthenticated, not authenticated. My bad. That is very awesome then. Let's see. So this seems to be the payload that they post to the username, an empty password. So we can just try that immediately. So like so. And there we go. Okay, so yeah, auth bypass is definitely a way in. I would have probably tested this regardless eventually. I would look for like default usernames, and I would explore the some more paths on the server and also the port 80. And then eventually I will try to do auth bypass, because that's something you should do on login forms if you complete the stock, especially if you don't know the service that you're up against, right? Like if you're dealing with like a new version of WordPress, you know that like an auth bypass won't work, right? But something like this, it seemed like it already had vulnerabilities related to SQL injection. And it will also, if we had absolutely no idea what the service even is, then it would also make sense to test it, right? So that's just a thing to note. So I just want to see what this is. If there's even is an endpoint. It seems like it is. You can. So let's see, this will... So this will be a post request to that endpoint, and then it will create the file name.php, then a payload, and then you can do cmd equals who am I. I want to see, okay, let's just go through the web app, because there should be some upload functionality, which should be decently simple. Let's say, so... Also, when you see this URL as well, you should also be thinking about LFI, right? So page equals or file equals, you should always be testing for LFI. Okay. So here we also want to see ID parameters as well. You should also like think of SQL induction as well, right? It's just another thing. So we definitely have some stuff to test here, but the most interesting immediately seems to be the upload functionality right here, right? So so let us try creating a PHP web shell. PHP web shell. So it will create the CMD parameter right here. And then let us put it right here. Oh, whoops, I put it in Etsy. That was not what I intended. There we go. Okay, so we can literally just access it from here. Image. So let's say this is the endpoint right now. And then, okay, can we do the same with our... Yes, we can. Right. So they basically have no protection whatsoever. So who am I? We are www data. So let me get a proper shell. And see, we just had this again running in the background because it's always nice to have automation in the background. Also, when it comes to the OSCP, I also highly recommend that you do some big scans before you take like a break. So you just have it running in the background for efficiency's sake. So take a break. Come back with a fresh mind, and then you have a lot more outputs to play with. Yeah, so it has Python 3. So this is the one we will go for, and I think this will work. There we go. Now we have a shell. Awesome. So I mentioned in the video that I was going to try auth bypass regardless, but I wanted to show you how to actually do this. Now, in this scenario, we didn't know immediately what type of server it was, but we found out quite fast. And because of that, we found remote code execution, right, unauthenticated, that it was to... that it was a auth bypass that pretty much gave us the payload, let's say... right here. And so we know that this works here. But what if it didn't? What if this was a custom application that we couldn't fingerprint and it didn't just tell us exactly what it was? So again, we know that this will work. So boom, the SQL query validates the true and we get an auth bypass, right? Now, what if we tried something like this? Will this work? No. Okay, what if we use a different user, but we still use a pound symbol? Will this work? Yes, it will, right? So how will we go through this payload list? That's exactly what I will show you, how to do it automatically to test for it, right? So that you see that, okay, this is a web app that might be vulnerable to auth bypass. I don't really have much else to test, and it just makes sense to check for it regardless. I know that it's not like the WordPress, that if it was vulnerable to the auth bypass, then I would find it easily with like WP scan or, you know, stuff like this. So yeah. So SQL auth bypass payloads. So we can try this list first right here. See if it's reasonable. Yeah, fine. Let's say. Yeah. So this is pretty much the pillar right here. This one is reasonable. So we can pretty much do this. And then we can, the first thing that I will show you how to do is using Burp Suite to automate this. Now keep in mind that Burp Suite Community Edition is the only Burp Suite that's allowed, not the Pro one on the exam, which means that the actual brute forcing will be a bit throttled, but meaning it will be a bit slower, but that's okay. You won't need too many payloads to test regardless to see if it's vulnerable. So, and if you're not comfortable using Burp Suites, then there is a free Try Hack Me room. Pretty much just go and search Burp Suite and it will show you how to set it up and the basics of how to use it, etc. But this video is focused on demonstrating this attack. So yeah. So we need to set it on Burp Suite so that when I type something like admin, it will end up right here. So here we created a post request. We can send this to repeater, send it again. And okay, so the server actually reflects the SQL query back to us. This is obviously incredibly bad practice, but that doesn't really matter for purposes. So let me send this to intruder by hitting Control-I and then Control-Shift-I to jump there. Now, the cool thing we can do, so a sniper attacks pretty much sets like one payload, like so, and then you can add a payload list right there, and then you can focus this one. But we want to use a pitchfork attack so that we can attack several different positions at once. So we need to copy this list, and then we set this position, and then we paste right there, and then we set a different position, and then we paste again. So now we can pretty much just hit start, and it will send this request, and it will inject these specific values with the payloads that we set in the payload configuration. So let us start. Yeah, it says an attacks are being time throttled. So we can see the lengths and the status codes and the payloads. So we can click on one of these. See, this is the payload and this is the response. So that is incorrect, etc. So we can pretty much just let this one finish, and then we can analyze the output once it's done. So now it is done. We can see at the bottom it says finished. So now the throttle is quite slow. So let's take a look at the bait right here. So 131309 GMT. That's the request number long one. Let's go toggle it like this. So the last request is first. Now it says 131454, right? So yes, almost 2 minutes just to make like 78 requests, but yeah, that's fine. This would pretty much be sufficient for testing auth bypass with MySQL. So let's say, now let's analyze the actual. So all of the status codes, the results. So all of the status codes are the same. Let us see if there's a difference in responses. Okay, but what length? So there's a decent difference in length. And there we go. Yeah. So this actually worked. So we see this payload right here. Yeah, see the payload right there. This is simple, so we see it. So that worked. So it seems that, let's see, success. So I'm guessing all of these are successes. Yes. And all of these are failures. Gotcha. So yeah. There we go. Even this payload right here worked. So yeah. That's the way that you can use Burp Suite for this. And again, I would suggest you do this and then take a quick break and then come back to it, right? So now what I wanted to show you next is pretty much to do the exact same, but using something like F-alpha. So let's say, but this is actually going to be quite similar to just simple reinforcing. So I'm going to use something like this. And then let me half bypass like so. So let me take the key. So let's go back to the request, right? So let's see, let's send a new request. So admin. This request is being sent to this endpoint right here. So let us add that. Okay, and then the user and the wordless father that we want to use will be this one. Now the post data is pretty much this, right? It's a post request, and this is the post data. So pretty simple post data. And then this is the method post request. This is just if we want to filter out the specific response. So we know that if it fails, like this is not valid, right? It still gives a 200 OK response. So I'm just going to remove that. We can remove the threads a bit. And then this is the appreciation or a content type. This is the follow or redirect. I'm okay with that. So I believe this is correct. Let us try that. Sorry, I forgot to add like a fast value right here. So there were like, instead of taking 2 minutes, it took like 2 seconds, right? So we can filter, on, we can filter the words, I guess. So something like this we know doesn't work. This is not a perfect way to do it at all. This is a bit messy. The reason why it's a bit messy is because it keeps throwing back to different queries and the different output that you give it, right? So If we do something like this, it will be a different response. Now, this is not too typical, but I believe there is a way with FF where you can yeah, I believe you can do something like this, where you can match responses that does not contain the specific word, right? So we can, for instance, do it with incorrect, I believe. So let's do that instead. So -fr, and then incorrect. So there we go. Super fast like that. We were able to pretty much get an auth bypass right. And we can try in the admin field as well. No, sorry, in the password field. And we can attempt that and simply to see how the site behaves. So it's certain to behave differently from the rest. And there we go. So there's an auth bypass in the password parameter as well. So yeah, hope this video was helpful. All right, so the scan is done. So we can have a look at the scan. And in the meantime, I will essentially just run up the directory brute forcing, right? So this is just a one-liner with ff, with your target environment variable, brute forcing for directories using the sec lists. So if you don't have that, it's just apt install sec lists like so to install it, and then you will get access to this path as well. And then we have recursion on. So this is something that you can get with ff that GoBoster does not support. I was thinking about adding it, but I want to keep it simple. But yeah, I'll add it for now. I think this is simple enough. Then all of you can just copy paste this. And then we just output this one to a file, right? It's going to be JSON by default. That's why we will parse it like so. But yeah, I'll show you it in a bit. ff doesn't have the cleanest output, but this is easy enough to copy paste. So yeah, let's just essentially run this and check the nmap in the background. So it's already found in admin, it seems, so that is pretty interesting. So, so this is the nmap, it seems. So let's see. So we have the open port, and then we have SSH. SSH is very not typically the path in, but noteworthy, I suppose. We have Apache 2.4 and 41. And then we have essentially a we have a web server on 445, it seems. So they've been trying to be a bit deceptive with that. If you can see right here, this is the normal nmap scan you can see at the start. So this part right here, that's what you're seeing in this output right here. And nmap is just assuming like, oh, 445, that's Microsoft DS, right? Or SMB. But in this particular instance, we can see that when we were running this specific nmap, right? Essentially checking for fingerprinting and in default nmap scripts, we can see that it identified this as a HTTP server and as Apache, right? So we can, of course, I highly doubt that nmap is wrong, but we can double check it with something like this, 445, hit enter again, and there we go. So even here, it says that it's Microsoft DS, but yeah, if you hit enter again, we can see that this clearly responds from a web server, right? So the same thing here, and then 22. So this is basic like banner grabbing with Netcat. So useful to see, but yeah. Okay, so we have essentially two web servers then to go after. And we can see right here that it found a admin path. And it is currently fuzzing this admin path, right? That is essentially what recursion is doing. So I've only made it one layer deep. So if it finds, for instance, target/admin, it will check for another like directory after that again. I don't think it's much worth to go deeper into that. I would maximum go 2, but I think 1 is pretty good and it'll tell you enough, right? More than enough. So yeah, let's just go and check it out. I accidentally interrupted it, but that is okay for now. Let me do the same thing actually for 445. Yes, let's go and check it out. Without the fuss, of course. So we can see that there is, but this looks, it might be the simple, but let's find out. Huh? So this might be basic for encoded. Trust me, it's not this easy. Now, now get back to enumeration. All right. Interesting. So I just want to show you when essentially you are so this is how it looks, right? In JSON. We can pipe this into JQ, and then it looks a lot more readable, but it's still not good, right? So pretty much all we care about is the status code and the URL, right? Mainly the URL, but status code as well. So you could just pretty much copy paste this. And there we go. So here we have the different things that it found on port 80 at the start. If you just want to see the URLs, you can pipe this into Arch, like so. And then you can just print the number 2, and there we go, right? And then here's all of the status codes, and yes. But yeah, you can just copy paste this, and this should be perfectly fine. And yeah. And because I piped it into sorts, it's gonna essentially go from like 200 to 300 to 400 to 500, like that. If I remove the sorts, there's no guarantee, as you can see right here. It's a bit messed up, so I just like to do that. So we found a password and then shadow as well. So let's check that out. Not this easy. That was the shadow, and then password. Yeah, it's the same string. All right. So I'm guessing then it's gonna be on the web server on 445, right? As we can remember from this one right here, there is a web server on 445, and then on port 80. So let me just clear the screen and then make this one a little bit bigger. And then these warnings right here, they look bad, but they're really not. It's essentially just showing that it found a upload directory under management here. So management obviously is an interesting directory. We will check out. But yeah, there's no reason to brute force another directory under uploads. The same thing with assets, etc. most likely. So that is why we have it like so. So let's check out this. Drivers. We have an image. We could download this and check EXIF tool, etc. But I'm not interested in doing that for now, at least. Doubt that's the path, but something to keep in mind. Some CTF rooms can do stuff like that. Database. We don't have any database exposed, at least. Okay. We have something. I'm mostly thinking here, like, these are names who could possibly try to brute force in terms of SSH, but I definitely want to have a look around before I commit to that. here seems like there is some hashes as well. That is definitely more interesting. So let me just take some quick notes. It seems that this is over, by the way. Let me just make some notes. So this is in a VM. So I'm just going to change back to my preferences, which is haunted colors. Not this. This one right here, Oblivion. So I'm just going to add that. And then I'm going to add this as well. And then I'm just going to keep that in mind. And I'm just going to have a little look around before I, again, commit to something. This is a general thing that I like to do. I don't want to jump straight, like, full into something unless I feel decently convinced that it's the path. These ones are definitely interested, but I'm not 100% convinced it's the path. So I just want to have a look around. So let's see again. So we have this, right, which we checked it earlier. And then we want to check out the directories on 445, right? So like so. So we have management admin assets. We have a database thing. We have the uploads, which is obviously always interesting, but that's the place that we found this. So let's go to admin and check this out. So this is a login, and this instantly makes me think of, let's see what this is. Vaporizer does not know exactly what it is, but whenever you see something like this, you definitely just want to Google it, right? Through user exploit, so traffic offense management system. That's why you're always interested to check out, let's say, version 1. All of these seems to be version 1. Remote code execution unauthenticated. Okay. SQL injection, RC. Okay. So, yeah, I'm glad that I took a look at this first before diving into something. So let's see. We can just download that one right there. So we can see right here in the post data, classes, login PHP. Also uses beautiful soup as well. This would not work right out of the way. We would have to at least modify the URL a bit. Let me start by essentially doing the auth bypass. I forgot where it was. There it is. So this is in the username field, which is an empty password it seems like this expert is doing. Let me just slam this into both areas and it works. Which is beautiful. Try rest. I'm looking at these upload functionalities, and I'm definitely curious. Let me try this. So let's see. So this is a PHP site. Use who share. Web shells. We can try something like that. Copy my IP right there. Open up this. Then 443 like so. Let's see. So let me open up this downloads and then this. And that just triggered and worked. Which, okay. That is quite amazing. Not actually expected. Let's see. So we have the uploads area that I want to get back to. Drivers. So it's going here. Find first driver. I wonder if this just triggers it, let's say. And then I save it. Please, it wants a bunch of shit here. No, it does not trigger it. But let me see. So the driver place is in the uploads area. Let's go back to drivers. And then we can probably trigger it like that. Yes, we can. So I guess that's the initial access. The main takeaway is just, once again, keeping in mind fingerprinting and just doing a decent bit of scanning till you find this path, right? So this path wasn't very difficult to find. But yeah, going back to the notes, we also didn't even have to use the brute forcing of files. So essentially what we would like to do, possibly, if this was a path that maybe gave like a 4.3 or something, or if we just had nothing else, then we could fuss this path right here, like management fuss, and then essentially going through this list with like PHP files, HTML files, because this server is running on PHP. But yeah, the most important part is finding the right directories. But the files one can be useful as well, because sometimes there's some hidden files. And that's why I just have a decent bit of files here. But this can take a lot of time, and definitely start out with all of the directories. And I like having one layer of recursion. You can of course do this manually. It works great alone as well, but I just figured that this will make it a bit easier for me and also everyone else who's using the nodes. But yeah, hope this was useful. And this room was a bit funky, especially with the port 445. But hope it was useful nevertheless, and have an awesome day. There we go. So we have MySQL open, we have SSH open, and we have port 80 open, right? So let's check out this site, Magnus billing VoIP system. Okay. So VoIP is voice over IP. So again, you always want to pay attention to banners and stuff like this. Also paths, because it could lead to possible public exploits, right? So I just want to look for billing. The Magnus billing. Okay, so it's only that. I wanted to look for versions. Authentication error. It never hurts to just check for some basic default creds. So let's say Magnus billing exploit. Magnus billing, okay. Command injection. But I'm just looking if there is any POCs out there. We don't know what exact version it is. Do we have that path, lib? Wait, so yeah, just some basic fingerprinting, and then we were able to find a POC, and now we can exploit it, right? So let me go to revshells.com, and let's just find a shell. Let me find our IP. This is the IP. We want to catch a shell with forfeit train. And let's try some different stuff. So it seems that it's... I wonder if it works like this as well. Does it have to have this as well? It seems to. What about this? No? That also seems to work, right? So let us copy this, change the payload to this, and let's try executing it. It does not seem to orange. It is hanging though. Was it given the output or no? It was not. So one thing, so this is a blind command injection. One thing that is always useful to check is issue something like this. So that when the solver renews, it seems, by this one. So let's do this. And let's try. See, so we are getting the request. So I just want to make a Linux reversal. Something like this. So let's generate, so the port, let's do 443 again. And then you can actually do ×0. You can specify the interface. And then I'll just rename this to something easier. Let's set out this server again. So output is just normal all. We can put this in temp shell .delve. So let's just see how that goes. So that runs fine. Now I want to make this one executable. I forgot to have a listener. And there we go. So that shell does not seem stable, but we at least have a shell of sorts, so we know that it works, right? So we could just try different payloads with this one, for instance. There we go. So now we have a shell. Now, if you enjoy how I teach and you enjoy this video and you want to take the OSCP, then what are you doing not being in this course? It's over 15 hours long, and it covers everything that you need. If you're only watching the videos on YouTube, you're missing out a lot, because it's over 15 hours of content. You will get access to the VIP section on Discord, where you can ask me any questions and you can study alongside all the other students in our course. Right now, you will also get access to this checklist right here, which will cover at least 95% plus of all the attacks and all the techniques that you need to know for every single section. Not only initial access, but AD, pivoting, Linux, and Windows privilege escalation. And the goal for you is to reach proficient or at least basic competence on all of them. That's one of the things. We also have this entire roadmap right here, where there's a bunch of action steps and a bunch of cheat sheets inside all of these hyperlinks that I can't show you in this video. But once you have completed all of them, you know for a fact that you will be ready to get into the OSCP exams and absolutely crush it. If that sounds interesting to you, to get all of this in 15-hour plus of video footage of someone who has OSCP, who explains different attacks and techniques and methodologies, it's going to be invaluable to you. Now, some people are confused with the offer. If you're interested in the notes, these are the notes that you will constantly see me use in the videos, right? They're pretty much recommended to go hand in hand with the course, and I use them constantly in the course itself, right? So I think you'll find it extremely useful. That's also why we have the third offer, which is the bundle, where you can buy both of these together for a discount. I hope that clarifies things. Best of luck on your OSCP journey. I really hope this will be massively useful to you. I'll see you in the next video.